Good now, revolutionaries, and welcome to the Rise Up Morning Show.
Incredible.
We're joined today by our friend Sam Steffanina. We are here at Consensus Toronto. Alex and I have not been banned from the country, though we
Don't put me in with your shenanigans. I got in very easily, very seamlessly.
I just learned that Sam has to go, like me, through Super Customs.
I do, yes.
Super Customs.
Yeah.
The upgraded experience, huh?
You could call it that, I guess.
It's definitely an upgraded experience here at Consensus, and that's where I want to start things. My friends, I do not know what you got to do this week, but on the conference floor yesterday at day one, I got to see one of the coolest little installations I've seen in a minute by a group called the Digital Spenders Club. And what I want you to know about this group is that they hosted this like blockchain video store that looks like a Blockbuster, okay, from times of yore. I'm going to send it to you here because I don't think Alex has the share up, but you can see it's like totally on point branding, right?
That's incredible.
Beautiful. But then look at what they did to the inside. These brothers took it to the next level. They designed these video covers to reflect crypto memes. So this one is BTC to the future in the style of Back to the Future. And they went so far as to even put names in the credits like, this is not Michael J. Fox, this is Hal Finney. And he's like starring Hal Finney, Dr. Carpellis Brown, Gavin, all the early contributors to Bitcoin. They have all Doge go to heaven.
Sick.
And they had Rug Busters, which has even got like the ghost of Sam Bankman-Fried. They got Logan Paul. They got BitBoy
as the Pillsbury Doughboy.
Down here as the Doughboy. You know what I mean? And then I think my favorite one might be they've got Die Hard, but they've got this Crypto Wars, A New Hope with Princess Leia right here, Vitalik. They've got Satoshi, and I'm going to tell my kids that this is actually Darth Vader, Gary Gensler himself. My fiance, Kimberly, her first job was at a Blockbuster Video. She worked her way up to manager, and, you know, the nostalgia factor is real. But what I loved about this pop-up was not only were the memes like top tier A+, but the Digital Spenders Club, they have this product that's like one of those card wallets, a cold storage wallet. But the whole thing is it's a super easy onboard to turn cash into crypto, store it on this card securely, but spend it like cash. And they're like, you know, it'll be easier for everyday people to use crypto if it's a simple experience that they already understand. Sure. Something we're familiar with. And they were like, what better way to demonstrate this than by giving crypto people a bunch of fun, nostalgic experiences, a crypto card, and then letting them buy silly little things like movie posters. And I think you can get your picture taken by a photographer or get your nails done with the little money that's on your crypto card. And then they want you to talk about it. And I was like, oh, we can talk about that. And if you've got something you want to talk about, this is the place for it. If you're joining us live, hello, we're so glad you're here. Leave us a comment and let us know what you're thinking, what your crypto question is. And if you're listening in the future, an extra special hello. We hope wherever you are, your candles are green, and we'd love to hear from you too. You can find all the links to find our official socials at theriseupmorningshow.com, where you can catch this as a podcast if you just don't have time, and where you can find the Rise Up Discord server. It's the community of communities. It's learners at all levels of experience, my friends. The only thing missing is you. That's the hack. If you want to learn crypto, you got to have a community. And that's what we're doing on the show, is we are expanding your community of friends. And I am so glad to say that we're joined today by our friend, Mr. Sam Steffanina. Sam is a gaming OG. He is a founder of WolvesDAO, which you've heard us talk about several times on the show. He is the host of Gamified, and recently, congratulations, was appointed as the CMO over at the Farcade. You'll remember the Farcade from our episode with Chuck, and if you didn't see it, go back and watch it. It's fantastic. But we're excited to talk to him about all things Web3 gaming, content creation, and get his perspective on this moment in time. Sam, thank you for joining us. And brother, welcome to the show.
Dude, thank you so much for having me, guys. It means a lot. I've been talking to Alex about coming on the show forever. Unfortunately, I live in a time zone where it's extremely early, and I'm not great at waking up and also having brain cells. So I was like, Alex, for the sake of everybody, I'm going to wait until we're in the same time zone. Somebody's apologizing for what they did last night, and I'm so curious about how last night's show went, because it sounded amazing.
Yeah, it's
We can get into it later. We all have a lot of
get that.
apologizing to do because at one point I opened that bottle of San Pellegrino that was in the freezer and it literally exploded.
Yeah, right behind me. It was
Right
like
behind
equipment,
Alex.
it just in the thick of things.
well, it was
You
like
know.
the transition was pure chaos in any way, and we finally just kind of had like, okay, we're basically now moving forward again and starting the conversation again. And basically, as soon as my first coherent sentence got out, Evan exploded a bottle right behind me, and we basically derailed the entire thing all over
Amazing.
again.
Yeah, but before we went on air, we were talking to Sam, who also runs a live show about like the perils of doing a live show. We're used to recording remotely in person. And one of those perils, we said last night, we had, the consensus fever. We wanted some of the guests we met from the conference, our friends Lindsay and Larissa. And we also had a guest booked from remote, but it's hard to have a remote guest with IRL guests. Didn't have enough headphones. And so we were like, okay, great. We'll do an hour with Jeff. We'll do an hour with Lindsay and Larissa, and Alex will be the guy who goes down and gets them. We'll split. It'll be so seamless.
It'll be
People won't even
easy.
notice.
Yeah,
I'll
our
stall.
dumbasses were like-
I'll keep them busy.
Yeah, we'll run a live
Never again.
transition between two different guests, one remote, one in person, in a studio that no one's ever filmed in before.
On 3 collective hours of
On-
sleep.
on
in
no
a strange
sleep.
location.
Yeah.
While you have to go get them through an elevator, you have to leave the room to do it.
Yes.
By the way.
Yeah. Awful.
Yeah,
This is a gross misrepresentation
Sam,
of the facts.
I have to confess, I am a video gamer from the old times, by which I mean my old times, handheld console games, and I was not a big part of streaming culture. So when Alex came to me and said, dude, you got to see WolvesDAO. You got to see Gamified. You got to get in touch with this community. He showed me your profile. He introduced you with glowing words. He connected me with Icy, a good friend of ours.
Yeah, Icy's
and I have since become a real big fan of your content. I think you're a great creator, but I really wanted to hand it over to Alex because, man, honestly, you wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him. I wouldn't know you if it wasn't for him. And that's been a great joy of doing this show is like getting to know the people he knows or that I know and then bringing them together. So
I love that.
thanks for introducing Sam. And how did you come to discover who Sam was?
That's actually, I don't remember what got me there at first, but I've just followed you for a long time.
Because Alex is a gamer of the moment.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Of the moment.
I play a lot of video games.
Jay Recruiter.
And I care a lot about gaming as a niche within the industry, particularly because, as we were discussing yesterday, I'm excited to get your take on this. It's one of the very few niches inside of all of Web3 and crypto that has achieved any kind of traction or adoption with its actual target audience. And I apologize because everyone who watches hears me say this all the time and complain about it. But, within, like, DeFi has done that. DeFi is used by people who enjoy the space and stake and loop and all of the different things that DeFi has to offer. Memes have done that. People who like to gamble and play super high risk rigged slot machines enjoy meme coins, and they're there. And then I would say, Bitcoin doesn't really count, even though it's done it. But then gaming is a tech inside the space that's used by gamers. And I just remember trying to learn more about it, which naturally led me to content from you, which naturally led me to discovering WolvesDAO. And all I really realized, it was kind of like a piecemeal thing over time, wherein I was like, okay, the good takes all seem to be posted by people who have some affiliation with this WolvesDAO thing, whatever the hell it is. And then I just mass followed, I think, everyone that I could find from that tag, and then found that you do the show, tuned in, watched it. It's one of the very few Twitter spaces that doesn't make me want to leap from the 34th floor of this apartment building. You
Tell us how you really feel, Alex.
yeah, shocker. I don't know, you curate great panels. You run a ship that has like a live stream with 15 guests on a panel on a regular basis. And I've been like blessed enough to do some of these panels with you. You send the talking points out ahead of time, but there is no rehearsal or coordination amongst guests, and everyone is just like very respectful with the transitions from even when there's disagreements and it gets a little fiery or whatever. It's just a banging
Well, and
show.
now you've moved it. You were just telling us to a podcast.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
like, not
yeah.
only is it just a Twitter show, but it's like on demand, baby. I was on the screen share showing folks how to find it on Twitter. But what's the
thanks, man.
website where they can stream it?
Yeah, so literally, it should be almost every podcast platform. If you can find a podcast platform that it's not on, I would be shocked,
Right.
honestly. I even
Call
found
And then
a
tell
Web3
Sam.
one. Yeah, actually, yeah, tell me. There's even a Web3 one called like Pods, where it's like minted as an NFT or something. I don't know. I just met him at Farcon, and so we're on there now too. It's like a whole
Sweet.
Yeah, it's a thing you can mint. Yeah, so we distribute it as a show, and I feel like it's a pretty decent podcast. You guys know Twitter Spaces. There's like some awkwardness around the mute, unmute. You've got to kind of like hit a key to push to talk in Discord kind of awkwardness.
When you get rugged a lot, there's lots of times when
There's that too.
host account gets kicked, or we don't have sound for a minute, or
Yeah.
all the different Twitter space ruggingness.
We know about that. This
sure.
show used to be a Twitter space, and it was fun, but it's
Luckily, only my mom listened to it when it was a Twitter space.
your mom and Neil.
Yeah,
Shout out Neil. Neil's getting a point for that.
Dude, shout out to Neil.
Yeah.
Neil and Tori, the Oest Gist OGs.
A list of G's. Anyway, I'm sorry. So it's going well though. You feel good about Gamified because
Yeah.
you should, man.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, it's a weird time in Web3 gaming where simultaneously like sentiment is low, but we have so much going on, and so the space in general, like you can kind of feel the momentum like from show to show, and how people's energy sort of tapers off, and they kind of reflect how they feel about the market with like the way that they show up to the show, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And so I've been kind of feeling the energy like dip and dip and dip, and it kind of bums me out. Every now and then we'll have like a really high energy one, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the content is bad. Like sometimes people being bitter and upset about a thing not going the way that we all wish it was going in my circle actually makes the best content. But with that being said, it's great to see that people still want to show up. They still want to have hard conversations, and hopefully people want to listen too,
I would interject to say that we've experienced the exact same thing. If something like on the DeFi side or the DAO side, or there's some big scandal, or there's just like kind of a general
Or just
feeling
prices
that
are down.
markets are crashed and cratered or whatever, people not only generally really want to know why, how long we expect this kind of thing to last, how far reaching it's going to be. I mean, but the real conversations are always the better ones. Not everything is sunshine and rainbows, which is kind of what I wanted to talk to you about today. It was just this idea that despite the fact that gaming has achieved this adoption and use by the people that it was intended to, perhaps on a smaller scale than it, will inevitably get to, people are kind of generally unhappy right now.
Yeah.
And I know that your question, so spoiler alert, there is a fantastic like kind of behind the scenes collective WolvesDAO and friends group chat that has a tremendous amount of brain power in it. And your question of the day, was it yesterday or the day before, was just sort of like, as you transition from April into May, has your personal sentiment score for Web3 gaming as a niche gone up or down, and what number would you assign to it? And I read a bunch of the answers, and I'm wondering if you can kind of hit, because you gave your own answer.
I did.
And then got a bunch. So what is the sentiment right now?
Yeah, it's kind of hilarious. People on Twitter know me for saying Web3 gaming is inevitable all the time, which I genuinely believe. But I think I gave the lowest score of the entire the entire chat. I said 2 in April and 4 in May. Like I do think we're on an upswing. We just really hit a lull there where like, there's 2 different categories that I think people need to understand. There is the inevitability of the technology, meaning will we use this thing going forward? And I believe 10,000% yes, that is the case. Like there is no way we can put that genie back in the bottle. People have found interesting mechanisms that are only improved or only possible because blockchain integration in a video game. Okay, so it's going to happen. But whenever people think about sentiment and market sentiment as an investment in Web3 gaming, that's obviously a totally different thing. And that's really what I'm talking about with that sentiment score. That being said, the reason for the uptick in May is, we have MapleStory just launched this morning, seems to be doing really well, which is exciting. In general, some life is coming back to the market. And it was great to see, to your point, the rest of the chat, there was people that were like, I'm an 8, I'm a 10, I'm a 7. And that was the most of it. There was a couple people that sort of agreed with me in like the 4 range. But it's wild, you said there's a ton of brain power in there. And, it's incredible founders, not only for Web3, but also like, Katie and Paul Bettner that have done incredible things. They've found success like 4 or 5 different times over the last 2 decades with incredible products. And so whenever they say their opinion, I'm like, oh wow. Like,
most of us have touched something that the Bettners did over their
right,
career. Like, and you may not realize it, but Words with Friends obviously is wildly popular.
That's pretty much.
But they didn't stop there.
Yeah.
Age and Halo, and anyone who's played on Xbox has probably touched something that Paul had a hand in, like
Insane, dude.
yeah,
Insane.
monsters.
Yeah, and then you have like Sinjin, who legalized poker in Macau and like all sorts of
Sinjin
crazy...
was just on the show, and he was like
All-star
in a
guest.
suit,
Isn't he amazing?
sweaty, like sprinting between 2 things and like hiding in a little booth to
He's
do
like,
the
sorry
show
guys, I'm
with
hiding
us.
in the back of a Japanese restaurant. It's late here. I just had a day full of meetings and I couldn't find a quiet spot. But
Dude, it was such a good show.
He's a savage, dude.
He ended up being one of the most requested to like immediately get that man back here
Hell
and just
yeah.
give him the mic and shut the hell up kind of thing again, because oh my God. Yeah, that was a great episode.
Rip, dude.
Yeah.
I brought him on to Gamified. I think I was lucky enough to get him episode 6 or 7. And at the time we were like really trying to find our footing. And he came on and gave me like magic. He everybody else was kind of like skittish and not really sure how to approach the topic and if they could be spicy or how harsh of an opinion they should share, whatever. And we were in like the depths of a horrid bear market where nobody believed in Web3 gaming. So it's like, guys, like just say whatever you like. Nobody's listening yet. Like, come on, And Sinjin would just come in and make everybody laugh. And him and Jerry, I always say, and I bet you guys feel the same way sometimes, where it's like when you get somebody like that that's willing to do the thing, everybody else feels willing to do it. I know you don't have massive panels on at the same time, but when a guest who comes on in the future sees Sinjin and how freely he talks, even just knowing that he was on the show, I'm like, okay, I can kind of say whatever, because I know Sinjin was letting it rip.
Yeah.
Yeah, Icy says he's here. First of all, shout out Icy.
What's up, bud?
Sinjin, the Titan of Taboo, the founder who can't be bought. I absolutely love it.
I am a big fan of this.
Dude.
And you've also got a lot of shows and a lot of content with your brother. And one of my favorite things about doing a show with Alex specifically is like we're tight. And people often ask, are you guys brothers? And we wear the same glasses a lot of the time. They say we look like the same guy in 2 different fonts. And we've built up a chemistry through friendship and camaraderie and have a lot of fun. But you have your literal brother to do content with. And that's got to be a real joy.
Yeah, I mean, we worked on YouTube together for 7 years and grew what at the time was the largest dance YouTube channel in history. And that created a lot of a lot of interesting discussions between the two of us. We had some ups and had some downs, but it's been really cool to reconnect in Web3 gaming because it's a little bit more of my thing. Dance was always his thing. I was background guy. I was setting up the microphones and the lights and the analytics and the streams and stuff. So to be able to have that period of like working on dance, which is his thing, and now this time where he's coming into Web3 gaming, which is my thing, is a really interesting sort of like juxtaposition for our relationship that I have enjoyed quite a lot. And our relationship actually is like better than it's ever been, which is really nice to be able to say.
That's killer, man.
Yeah.
That's killer. So also, the Farcade. We had Chuck on the show.
Yeah.
And it was also one of some of our best episodes have been like Web3 gaming oriented.
Amazing.
But
Go
dude,
figure, you get brilliant people to come on and talk about the cool shit they're doing.
I mean, that's
a great
I'm
episode.
sure that's going to be one of those episodes that, I don't know, 5 years from now when the Farcade is huge, it's going to be like people will say, oh man, you guys talked about that 5 years ago kind of thing.
I
he
hope
told
so,
he
man.
told the story about how he and his brother helped their sister code the Candy Crush game that shot to #1 on the platform. She's never built a game, never written a line of code before, and they shipped this thing in a day.
Yeah.
And everybody loves it, and she's a game dev and is hooked. And he built what, like 2 games on stream with us, and they were
we did
playable.
2 different ones within minutes. Yeah.
So I can understand why a guy like you who is real sharp and savvy and does this for a living would be like, okay, sure, but also you've got a lot of your own stuff going on, and I bet it's a real challenge for you when things are going well or not to say no.
Yeah.
How do you pick the right opportunities, and why was Farcade the one that you were like, Farcade is inevitable?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. And thanks so much for asking. Yeah, so it was one of the hardest decisions of my life, honestly, because I was so excited about all the stuff that we had going on and still have, frankly, going on. We were doing live events with the WolvesDAO. We have product launches coming up with the WolvesDAO. I also do a lot of consulting. I have the 2 shows. I'm an advisor for 12 different projects, and so
not
12?
much.
Only a dozen, And so whenever Chuck came to me, it was actually really more of like an advisory thing. He was like, hey, we want to do this with the token. What do you think about this for go-to-market? How could we improve the product? And I would just give him my thoughts and feedback. And one day, after sending an entirely too long voice message, he was like, you can tell me to go F myself. What would you think about coming on full time? Like, is there any world in which I might be able to convince you? And I was like, no, like, let's take a meeting about it. Like, let's talk through it. Like, I'll give you that, but I don't know. And the more that we talked, the more that I just saw like top to bottom alignment, like across the board in the way that we would approach the business, the way that we were seeing the next couple of years play out, the way that we wanted this product to evolve, the way that we want to pitch the product, which is the TikTok of gaming. And whenever I talked with him, I got so inspired by the product. And I think, I must have been made in a factory to literally like be the CMO of this company, because I have obviously the Web3 gaming experience, and it's a Web3 gaming product. I have the social media experience from YouTube, also a diehard gamer from Web2 over a long period of time. And I felt like nobody else in the industry really like fit that category. And I think there's something really empowering about being like, not only do I want this, but I'm the right person for it. It feels really good. And the last 2 months that we've been working together have honestly been like some of the most fun that I've had in a long time, because it is so cool to work on a product where you're the only non-developer. Like everybody else on the team is like really good at building the stuff and coding and doing the things that put it all together. And I'm just like the guy with ideas on like, here's how we could increase the referral flow. What if it should be more like TikTok? Why is it not in a feed? Oh, the favorite button is like too hidden. And then they're just like, check your phone, it's done. And it's such a good feeling, you know? But from a high level, if anybody doesn't know, it literally is the TikTok of gaming in multiple reasons. So TikTok like this, giving us this video tool that we wouldn't otherwise have, enabling us to make better content. So the Farcade is going to have a gaming platform that allows you to basically build your own game, even if you don't know how to code. And then it's also going to help with distribution. So like we wouldn't be able to reach you guys if TikTok wasn't broadcasting this out and giving us some form of discovery. Farcade already is having community members reach like 300, 400,000 plays on some of their creations. So we give people the distribution too. We have people all the time that are like, yeah, I've like side coded like a little game on the side while I was working or whatever. But then I was like, who's going to play it? Like maybe my mom and friends, but like, how do I get it on Steam? Like you're basically what everybody banks on is going viral on Reddit. They're like, I've got like 3 Reddit posts in me, and if they don't work, then like my game marketing is effed. And like 3 years of work was worth nothing. They're like, I think we could do a little bit better than that, you know? Your magnum opus of a gaming project.
Yeah. So I'm personally excited to put some stuff there, because the cool part is that it kind of blends the world of like as Chuck described it, content creators and casual gamers, wherein you can take like an errant idea that you had and see if you can materialize it into something playable, and then toss it out into the world and see what the response is with very quick turnover. And I'm sure that I definitely want to get your thoughts on this. One of the things that I've identified or watched or just noticed as being really tough for Web3 gaming to accept as a niche is that building games is hard, and it takes a long time, and it's very expensive. Shout out GTA 6.
Very expensive.
And the attention span in crypto land is more on the level of like a rat on meth. And so when you take like the budgetary requirements and the time commitment needed to put a good like functional game together, especially on a big scale, something that can handle a number of players that they all want to hit. Something like, I mean, no one's cracking out something like Call of Duty in a weekend, with like 3 guys who've never built a game before and, a couple $100,000 or something like that. And that's those two things running into themselves probably contributes pretty heavily to the negative sentiment that like it's really hard to wait, and you are watching other areas of crypto advance and accelerate. Like you're watching DeFi get announcement, just product ship, and they're landing and like they're making people a bunch of money, and you're like, I know that what I have is really good, but I need another year to get it out there, kind of a thing. And I just imagine that's got to be really hard to tangle with, as you like know how early you were to something, how inevitable something is, how much sense this makes, that there's an audience that like wants to try the game and give you the shot, but you can't get around the fact that it just takes forever. And that's, I think, one of the biggest, most exciting things about Farcade. It's like, no, dude, fuck that idea, ship it, see if it lands. If it just crushes, maybe look at expanding it and building it out into something else. But like, I mean, what's that been like, especially as someone who covers the space so heavily, just like having to wait so long for big stuff, and then, I mean, inevitably being disappointed if a game, because not every game is good. I mean, what's the fail rate on Steam games? Like 95%?
95%, 90% fail to make the money that they cost to create. 95% fail to make any money at all. They around break even, and then about 98% are considered like financial like failures, because of the time investment that went into it. Your point is a great one, and there's an awesome phrase which I'm sure you guys have heard, which is like being too early is the same thing as being wrong. And it hurts every day. I mean, that's like the epitome of my investing career in Web3, which is painful. But your point is a great one. You mentioned like nobody's building Call of Duty in 3 weeks, and we will get there eventually where this is like super utilized in AAA gaming too, which is what we call like the super high budget stuff like Grand Theft Auto and Call of Duty. But even on a smaller scale, when you think about casual and hyper casual gaming, which is like Candy Crush and stuff like that, there's a company, there's Scopely, there's Voodoo, there's all these big mobile gaming studios, and what they do, a lot of people don't realize, is they actually create prototype gameplay loops and then test them out internally and then murder thousands of them every year. And just to test if a gameplay loop is a good or a bad idea usually takes 2 weeks minimum to create what might represent the gameplay loop. And then of course some of them take a month or 2 months if they're a little bit more creative, or they don't feel like they nailed it, so they didn't get a real test out of it. So essentially, there are these farms of trying to test ideas out and then killing them and having some sort of filter to curate, like, these are the best 5 games. We're going to actually spend the full year developing them and then release them, and put huge amounts of marketing budget behind them, by the way, too. And we believe that not only is the Farcade something that, enables everybody that's listening to this to be a game builder, which I think is really cool. There's also these tremendous corporate advantages where all of a sudden, like, Scopely and Voodoo don't have to spend that 2 weeks to test a gameplay loop out. They can actually do it in like 2 hours. And whenever you speed up the creative process as well as the productive process, like, what does that do to what's already like a $70 billion industry, which is mobile gaming specifically? The implications are absolutely insane. But again, the coolest part is that, like, I don't know how to code at all, and I've built a game in the Farcade, and we're only making it significantly easier, like, every week for people like me to be able to do it. The developers, obviously, it's cool, but it's not like mind blowing. For me, it's like earth shattering. I'm like, oh my god, I've always wanted to do this thing. Yeah, I think one of the other things about it that's so exciting, like you mentioned with this, like shortening of the loop production from weeks to hours, there is such a low tolerance for failure inside of crypto. Like, it's one of those things wherein someone builds a thing and ships it, and if it doesn't succeed, like, even though we all can be aware of, like, in startup land, and especially in startup gaming land, your chances of, like you said, breaking even, let alone smashing success, are unbelievably low. And so I feel like you probably also see this thing wherein, like, a product that's like not good, like just didn't work, gets
clung to for so long because we just can't accept the fact that a startup company in Web3 is allowed to just go out of business for a reason other than the fact that maybe they just didn't nail it and it just wasn't perfect. Like, we have to be like, you guys scammed everyone. This was such a ripoff. Like, all of this was a lie.
It's an incentive thing too. We bought your token.
Yeah.
We gave you money.
Yep.
We've been working here for a year. All these things that make us feel like it's got to work. We're married to it. Sunk cost thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then the willingness to accept that, like, this one wasn't it, but like, we need to move on and iterate again and do something else is like the natural evolution. I mean, how many times have we failed a business?
Oh, thanks for reminding me, Alex. But almost enough that it doesn't hurt anymore. You know? My soul is dead.
Just wake up, eat the glass, and try again.
That's right. Well, and what I like about this is it disrupts that model and gives it something. I mean, you mentioned the Betners. How many pitch decks do you think are trying to find their way to the Betners right now? And how many times do you think Katie and Paul have to fly swat them away? Not because they don't want to support gamers or help people out, but because they just don't have the bandwidth to hear every single pitch all the time. And how great is it for Katie Betner to be able to smile and make someone's day by saying, you should make this game right now totally for free. Here's Farcade.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
That,
And then they're like, wow, great. And the same way that Alex and I don't have to film a whole documentary with $1 million and get Netflix to distribute it, we can just have an idea, pull out our phone, the lighting is bad, and if it's a good idea and we feel it and can communicate that to the camera, 2 billion people will see it. And if they don't, no big deal. I'll go on with my day.
You can A/B test nearly for free with unbelievably high velocity, and that's the most exciting thing to me about Farcade.
Yes.
I think that a tool like, I think it's easy to sit there and say, like, this is the biggest threat to game. It's going to put, game developers are going to hate this. It's going to be a pariah of the space, whatever. Sure. I think
that'll be the new catchy ad. This new Web3 startup is putting old gamers out of it. You see those stupid ads on like MSN, Yahoo, or whatever. Yeah, it's gonna be like you guys on the cover.
Yeah, I think it's gonna help them in the long run because you could take those studios and let them use the tool to get real-time feedback immediately on an idea before they spend a shitload of resources on putting something out. And you could get that test right from the source.
If Rockstar had the equivalent of a Farcade, if they had an account on the Farcade, like they would no
test
doubt
a
be
feature.
viral.
Yeah,
like,
toss an idea out
if
there.
If TikTok had that
whatever.
feature, their account would blow up. Like here's, waiting for GTA 6 still, no problem. Just like swipe through these weapons and shoot them. Or whatever. Like something stupid like that would be great. Or here's a game that has nothing to do with it from our developers.
Right.
That you can play right now. Tomorrow, a game a day. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's killer, dude.
Yeah. A game a day. I like that.
Yeah.
I was thinking, actually, me and Alex were talking yesterday about TikTok. And as I'm sure you guys have seen, I have 0 videos posted on this TikTok account. Me and my brother did a lot on TikTok back in the day. We actually used Musical.ly before ByteDance acquired it, turned it into TikTok, all this stuff.
Dang.
But with that being said, I think what I'm going to do with this TikTok account is do like day one of building a Farcade game with like no coding knowledge and like walk people through my own struggle because again, I'm a non-technical person. I'm a creative. And so I do run into roadblocks. And what I say is like, we've removed 98% of the barrier, but that last 2% is really tricky. Like that last 2% a lot of the time is people knowing like, oh, something is broken. Let me go to this specific piece of the code and just like change it manually. And we have to get it so good that you can just keep telling the AI like the health bars don't look right and it can figure out what exactly that means and how to interpret it. I saw Tori also say that she keeps losing her Farcade streak. I'm sorry, Tori. We actually just added streak freezes because we realized that was a problem because it's set to UTC. So it's like 6 p.m. for me is whenever the streak resets, which is real annoying. So if you click on your streak, whenever you click on the little thing that says like 20 or whatever it's at, you can purchase with points and you don't have to spend any money on it, but you can get a little freeze to prevent that in the future.
I have speaking of audience questions, another question that I would really like to hear your take on. There was a sort of a debate in the comments about storage layers. The question from Alex is, what storage layers are going to make sense for Web3 games? Is it going to be IPFS, Arweave, WebTorrent, maybe something like, Avalanche's network, subnets? I think a lot of people struggle to imagine a world where, because they've used crypto for games, like to buy them or to buy something in them. And because their experience with crypto is like waiting for a transaction to go through, especially if they're new and it's, wallets are clunky, I think people kind of wonder where that intersection is going to be. And we talk about it a lot on the show.
Well, and there's the classic, like, meme kind of video of someone playing like a combat game and like going to swing the sword, and then a pop-up comes up, it's like, verify this, confirm the transaction, then you say yes,
Gas
and then
fee,
it swings, and then that kind of thing. Pay gas.
Right, we talk about it a lot on the show, but I feel like you have a lot of unique perspectives on like what that integration actually might look like. And I see like you're wearing, I mentioned Avalanche, you're wearing the killer gear
subtle,
here.
right?
Yeah,
Dude,
that's
like,
very...
Avalanche, we're going to need that. For people in podcast land, Sam is wearing this like racer jacket with the AVAX logo on the chest, and he unzips it and it says Avalanche on the t-shirt underneath. It's like Superman changing into Superman.
Yeah, that's right. The secondary cape. It's a great question. So Avalanche is the sponsor of Gamified. I've have over 2-year-long business relationship with them now, which is incredible. Wow. That might as well be 1,000 years in crypto. So
my first TikTok about a specific crypto was Avalanche, like 4+ years ago.
No way.
Yep,
that's
the very
insane,
first
dude.
one I ever did a dedicated
4
video
years
about.
ago.
Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, to answer your question, Evan, I think what really matters whenever it comes to gaming is like, think about the few major things that affect games. One is like, can it handle a lot of transaction volume? Because to your point, while it probably shouldn't register on chain every time I swing a sword, like there are some cases you could make for like why that's actually pretty cool. Of like all damage is on chain, or every time I buy an item in the auction house, like that probably is on chain. And imagine how many sales there are just in the World of Warcraft auction house on a single server in one day. So
oh my God, the RuneScape Grand Exchange processes how much volume in gold every day. Like, no.
So even that, we're just talking about like millions of transactions every single day, or maybe even every hour. And then you think about things like how many people can be on the same block space and like doing external transactions outside of the game, but are still affected by the game, and trading the NFTs and trading the currency that goes back and forth with it. Like you get to this point where you're like, okay, well, there's a couple of things. One, probably shouldn't cost me gas every time I'm doing that, because that's like a real miserable experience. And two, it probably can't have a lot of other things going on chain. Like Star Atlas's Sage is there like a third party like Forex game that happens outside of the sexy spaceship universe, and that game is 3% of all Solana transaction volume. And
Jesus.
So it's
seriously.
like, Solana, which we've seen go down a couple of times because it got overwhelmed with transactions when things like Trump coin happened. It gets real scary to be like, well, how many Sages can there be? How many Star Atlases can we have on Solana while also Pump Fund exists and all this other stuff is going on? Like, those two things probably don't coexist very well. So I don't think the future is actually like all of those games being on Solana. I think what'll happen is, I don't know, there's an L2 on Solana, or like people spin out their own chains or do something, but it makes me a little bit concerned about like their potential future in competing in Web3 gaming, So for that reason, to answer your question specifically, Avalanche with their subnet stuff, I just think it makes sense personally. Obviously, I'm incredibly biased as I wear the thing. I will say, I think that there's plenty of other chains that can also do it though. Like you have Zai making like layer 3s that are so like deep down the rabbit hole that they can kind of do gasless transactions and everything happens really quickly. Scale hasn't really made moves in games. Like they don't have a ton of great games, but they are a gasless chain, and their transactions settle really quickly, which is important. So that's the kind of stuff that I look for, that I feel like justifies like, okay, you can actually be a gaming chain long term, not just, there's so many people, and this is a great warning for anybody that's like looking at new Tori, sorry, I got distracted. Tori said, oh my God, don't put WoW on chain, I'll lose my life again. I feel you, sis. There's a lot of chains out there that are like, we want to get into gaming so bad, like we're signing these games, bro, like check it out, like we're a gaming chain. And I'll be like, why? And they're like, because games have a lot of transactions, and people like games.
Well, you've done a good job of covering a bunch of the ways that different networks and different projects within the ecosystem have done that, like, and misstepped. I mean, one of the first episodes that I ever did as a panelist with you was specifically talking about Gala, which like
shout out
had a pretty
in a bad way.
Yeah, well, it was a very popular TikTok project. There's like every now and then,
even still, people are like, Gala?
Yeah.
well, because it's just like this is one of the reasons that I bully you so much about coming onto TikTok, because as I say, there are so many people, shout out to all of you, I love you all so much, here trying to learn about stuff, and my favorite word to describe TikTok, a dearth of people.
A dearth.
Dude, you know, every time I say dearth, my wife like feels a disturbance in the force, and she's just like,
Darth Vader over here.
You're a dearth. But like, if you don't create something for people that are that interested and that hungry to learn about it, they will fill the void with what is there. And what is there, again, shout out, you know who you are, is XRP conspiracy theories. And so like the tagline that I basically came up with yesterday to talk to people about why you need to get onto TikTok is like, XRP thanks you for your support in not creating content on TikTok.
Yeah.
Because you not being there allows them to continue to thrive with the conspiracy theorists. And it's honestly, it is born out of a genuine desire to learn more.
We should make that video on the conference floor. They have Ripple has a booth. We should make that booth. I got an XRP t-shirt. It has XRP and then it's got a rocket ship and a moon on it. And I want to put that on and just be like, Ripple Labs thanks you.
Thanks you. Yeah, all of you sleeping on TikTok, Ripple Labs thanks you for your support.
My mom is an XRP maxi, by the way.
Shout out.
Shout
no way.
I am a big
Mama
fan
Nina.
Of this.
Oh man.
Yeah, dude.
Anyway, that basically just to say that Gala was like the one that became synonymous with gaming, and then because there wasn't a lot of creation about the rest of the gaming space, you know, like for example, Ronin has a lot of people and players and games on the platform and interest and throughput and whatever, and it almost never gets talked about because nobody from Ronin talked about it on TikTok, and so there was nothing to like spread and talk about. And I thought the Gala coverage that you did was basically talking about like, okay, well, identifying methods of extraction and like why this is ultimately not the way that we should be doing this. And I think that kind of goes to just, like you said, leveraging a game perhaps to put a shitload of things on chain and force a bunch of stuff on chain that maybe doesn't need to be there. I don't know, I guess, have you noticed that is continuing to be as big of a problem as it once was? You know, the maybe awareness around extractive practices or being more literate as a user of the niche to identify like when you're exclusively being taken advantage of just for farming liquidity or gas fees or...
Well, I think there's, you know, speaking to the Gala example specifically, there's also this problem where like, you know, Gala for 3 years probably made like hype TikToks and YouTube videos and like there was famously this guy making $240,000 a year to basically be a Gala shill. He like exclusively just pumped it on YouTube, and his like the DMs got leaked where he was like begging them to redo the contract, and it was like a whole thing. And so you have people like that are just like their entire career is like pumping Gala. And then whenever they're like, you know, have a ton of lawsuits going on and people like games are leaving their chain and stuff, it's like one news cycle. And so you compare 3 years of hype to like a week where Sam and some other people are like yelling about how terrible it is and how much they've sort of like taken advantage of the space that we care about. And so it's really hard then for that to permeate like TikTok, where content is effervescent, it's happening 24/7. It's and people also, in some ways you want the salacious news story, but in a lot of ways, like especially whenever you're heavily invested and biased, you don't want that to happen. Like you're like, I don't want to promote the bad news about Gala because I probably hold some Gala. I probably have some NFTs. I still play Spider Tanks or something. Like I don't think anybody does, but that's the bad example of that.
Shout out Spider Tanks.
Shout out Spider Tanks. So it's just
my favorite game, man.
Yeah, dude, come on. Spider Tank's actually not a terrible game for what it's worth, but it's
funny that would have been my example too. It's the only one that's the name sticks out in my head.
Mirandus, I remember, was like the game that's always coming as well. And a dub nodding in the background. I see it. Yeah, I remember Mirandus. So yeah, you just kind of have this like messed up incentive. It's sort of like you guys remember whenever Blackpink and like K-pop got really popular in America.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, not only was it like popular, but like you couldn't say anything bad about them.
Yeah.
It like ever. Or else you would have like 100,000 people in your DMs calling you like a monster.
Wild.
Yeah. We've got that in Web3 to a lot of extent. I mean, you just told me that yesterday you have like death threats about some of the stuff that you talk about.
Yes.
Because people are so entrenched in the way that they feel about this. And
Yep.
you're, especially whenever you tie identity into it, which I think happens with a lot of people. I identify as an XRP maxi. I identify as like the person who loves Mirandus more than anybody. Spider Tanks is my favorite game. Gala's going to the moon. Like, people tie their entire identity into the success or failure of that. And so if you tell them it's failing, it's like killing part of them. It's like killing their lottery ticket on top of killing part of them. It's a lot, you know?
Yeah, and a lot of it has to do with financialization. Because people can speculate on this stuff, they do, and they become a little over leveraged. And that, because money is sort of this, currency with which we, ritualize our lives.
Yeah.
It's kind of a worshipful thing. We put so much into it. We had Mark Boyron, the CEO of Polygon, shout out Polygon, on the show yesterday. And he was saying if he could wave a wand and do away with one thing in our space, in our industry, it would be this sort of toxic tribalism that keeps people siloed and using one chain or one product or playing one game. And, I'll give them a big shout out. The Rise Up Morning Show is sponsored by Polygon, powered by Polygon, in part because they have this vision to bring people together, because they're not super maximalists. They coordinate with the Ethereum Foundation. They coordinate with other layer 2s. They do a lot of granting. I imagine, hearing you talk about your relationship with Avalanche is awesome, because to have longevity and to have like a relationship based marketing sponsorship is so different than what everybody else is doing, which is like, I'll give you $240,000 to only talk about my game on a TikTok live stream every day for the rest of your life. Or like, get me a video that gets as many likes as possible. I don't care what it's about. Then you get the Pump.Fun streams where somebody is like launching a token and tying a baby up in a chair. Pump it up or the kid gets it kind of thing. It's
insane.
It's just not a helpful model for doing things. And we need...
Real example, by the way. That's not being... it's not hyperbole.
It's not hyperbole. And so we need people to help us tell a better story about that, who will be putting their money where their mouth is.
I actually want to hit that, like, if your thought is complete.
No. I am complete.
Evan found himself at the end there.
You mentioned... Sam, like the bias towards Avalanche, and obviously for those who can't see you, you are very decked out.
I'm dripped.
But I actually want to talk about that. This was one of the things that you and I talked about yesterday as I was doing my final round and closing the bullying cycle to get you on the show. I think that it's an unfair, like, I think it's good to have the self-awareness to identify when what you're saying is informed by a bias built on some sort of a foundation of whatever. But I think it's important, especially as we are working full-time as content creators with a desire to do more and create more and provide more value to people who want to watch and learn and be entertained. You have to pay for that. It's not free. Like, the amount of time and energy and resources to create all of this is very taxing. And one of the weird, like, relationship requirements with creator and audience is that everyone wants the creator to do more and make more and be there more often. But the second you start getting paid, people generally get really upset about it. And it's a like, I am aware that I'm saying this like live and with everyone, and I do not experience this with our audience, because I think we do a very good job of trying to be like very open about the fact that, like, hey, it'd be really cool to make a living, and I really don't want it to come from you necessarily, or like required. But I think the toxic relationship between follower and creator can sometimes be very parasitic, where it's like, hey, do more, create more, give me more, but I need you to be broke. You can't accept sponsorships because now I can't trust you anymore. So I would say that, like, yes, we might be biased. Like, we are sponsored by Polygon right now, but like, that was deliberate. It wasn't just like who's gonna pay me and like, oh, you great. I don't know.
We say no to way more people.
Yeah.
To wait for the right kind of relationship, the right brand.
Yeah. Well, it's like I said the other day, if you're not excited to tell your people that you just got sponsored by somebody, you should not take the sponsorship.
Ooh, I like that.
And
Snaps for that. Is that or do we still do that?
We do snaps,
We
but we
can,
also
yeah.
do dings. You'll hear it on the recording.
Sweet. Yeah.
so, I mean, I'm sure that you have been approached by a lot of sponsor requests that you've said no to. Yeah. And so something informs the decision to say yes to something. So yes, it's true, like you might be wearing the Avalanche shirt, but you might be wearing it because you love Avalanche genuinely, and it was a great opportunity to get to work with them and for them to respect the work that you do and fund at least a portion of it so you can keep doing it. And obviously, like, I want to have a mutually beneficial relationship with my sponsor and give them their ups and shout out for doing the thing. It's so hard to do that in crypto because everything is an investment vehicle. And so the nature of that, like, it is so much to keep track of. And I wanted to get your thoughts a little bit about on just like navigating that world as a creator, particularly in Web3, who requires sponsorship revenue to exist and to do the work. Because I mean, you spend more than a few minutes a week preparing for all of your content and show prep and show debrief and posting and recording and editing and thinking and writing and filming and traveling and on and on and on and on and on. And I mean, I don't know exactly where I'm going with this. It's just like it really needs to be talked about more because we need to be sponsored to continue to do the job that people love to see us do.
I love that, man. I think there's a few different layers to it. One is like we talked yesterday also about, you know, what's actually in the contract. Like in the contract that I have with Avalanche, strictly gamified. What one show, not even both of the shows, not a you'll also post, not a you'll come to our events, not a you'll play our games, not a you'll interview our people, like literally none of it.
And shill the token is never in these contracts.
Never. Not, at least not ours.
No. And well, I mean, and it's actually like when you have a good conversation with a real legitimate sponsor, one of the first things that we always get told is do not talk about our token. Like, don't mention it, don't talk about it, don't incentivize it.
Somebody shouted out Nil because he works at Polygon. He's a creator here on, you know, and he's how we started the relationship with him. He's always upfront about like, hey guys, I work here. I can't talk about this token. And he says to us like, I don't expect you to talk about it. You know, let's be clear.
Well, and on the contract, like I told you, again, shout out to Polygon for being easy to work with because it is, here's a lot, I guess, of behind the scenes. It's specifically not in the contract to create content. The show is sponsored by Polygon. My videos are not. My tweets are not. Like, we have autonomy to create what we want to, feel inspired to post with no restrictions or requirements.
And that's kind of like having the show sponsored, you know, Gamified. I'm curious to hear, as you elaborate on this, just, I feel like we're seeing our friend Sam, other Sam, Marketing Wiz here on TikTok. She's noting this trend that we've been observing, which is kind of a shift away from like, follow, share, hyper engagement, hyper attention, commercial oriented sponsorship, and more towards like, you know, our name is on your stuff. Over time, we know you'll mention us when it's appropriate. We'll find ways to work together. We'll leave it up to you. And it's less about how much like quantitative engagement can I get?
Yeah.
And over time, how can the trust you've built with your audience translate to me? Because I don't have time to do that kind of thing.
I was just complaining about this 2 days ago to my buddy Knock. I was like, why is everybody so concerned about being able to attribute the marketing that I do?
Can you give the billboard in the Times Square example that you told me yesterday?
Yeah. So there's a thing called billboard theory, which is the idea of how many times does somebody have to see an advertisement before they remember what the advertisement is about or they convert to a user of a product. And the theory is it takes 7 times of driving past the same billboard to be like, oh, like Crown Dentistry. Okay, like I know them now. Oh, 977 if you've been in a car accident or whatever. Like, you know, that kind of BS. Yeah. And so if you look at billboard marketing, if you look at TV marketing, if you look at anything that isn't like on your phone or computer where you can instantly click the thing, there basically is no attribution for it. Like nobody goes to what's a good example? Nobody goes to Domino's and says, hey Domino's, like, can you tell us exactly how many people you were able to convert off of that like 8-week campaign that you did with CBS? Like they would be like, I can roughly tell you how many people were had their TVs turned on during it, but we have no idea, that we might be able to say, oh, well, like during the Lakers game, we had an advertisement and then we got an uptick or something of like pizza sales for this like 30-minute window. But that's not how it works, like nobody is able to track it over a longer period of time. There is no attribution for it. So it's literally just marketing. It's just building brand awareness. And for some reason that has lost all semblance of value for like most people in our space. And I'm not sure why. I think it's the short-term thinking. And that's why like Polygon and Avalanche are great partners, because especially on the chain level, they tend to have a lot of money, which is obviously good because they can spend some of it on us. But the reason that it's even better is because it expands their time horizons, the way that they think. They're thinking on a 10-year scale. They want that brand awareness and that name recognition and people to affiliate them with, hopefully you guys blow up. Hopefully I keep doing well. And we're in this point where they're like, yeah, we sponsored that show all the way back in the day. Like we've been in Web3 gaming. We've been supporting Web3 gaming since all the way back whenever Gamified started, is hopefully like a notch on the belt for them, and not just the time, the of the moment marketing that they get, during.
It builds such a different relationship with someone, like you mentioned, where you're like, I can tell you exactly which products in my life I was converted to because of repeated exposure. Shout out to Boll & Branch. I have their
not
sheets.
Sponsored, but
not
it should
sponsored, but it should be.
What is this?
It's a sheet. They do sheets.
Oh, like bed sheets.
Like bed sheets and linens and whatever. And super nice, high end, whatever. And I had never purchased expensive sheets in my life. I had always just done like Target brand, whatever the cheapest thing was. And one day I was just like, I'm really curious if I'm missing out on anything. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna give it a shot. I'm gonna get like one set of really expensive bed sheets and just like see what all the fuss is about. And immediately I had heard the Boll & Branch commercial on Sirius XM radio for like the last how many years. It was the only name in my head. I was like, I'm going right there and I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
And then shout out, the reason I would give them a shout out for free is because their customer service was just bonkers. Like I bought the sheets. One of my dogs ate the pillowcase. Not their fault, obviously. I wrote to them being like, hey, listen, this is what happened. I know you don't sell it. Can I pay you for just one pillowcase to replace this? And they sent me an entire queen set for free and apologized. And I was like, you're out of your mind.
You're apologizing to me?
This is terrible
gaslighting
business.
on another level.
But because of that interaction, I am a like diehard customer for life, to the point where like I'm connected on LinkedIn to the CEO and we have talked about it, and they know I'm a content creator, and I actually, shout out to Boll & Branch, am like the one who's getting them to do a creator program for people to talk about it, to like change into that style of marketing because of my experience with customer service.
That's so cool.
And that relationship means so much more than like, I'll pay you a bunch, shill me, let's get 1 million views on this video right now. Fuck the conversions. Like I just want the attention for right now, and number go up kind of a thing. Yeah. It's so much just better to do something long term and just like build the trust with like a methodical building of the relationship over time.
I want to ask you, Sam, do you have, we're talking about this yesterday. Not that Alex and I are like a big deal, but we have enough traction and enough people who really have supported our platform, who watch us every day, and we have enough momentum that we can get discovered, and we can stand with credibility to say other people have sponsored us, look at our content backlog. But do you have any advice for somebody who's maybe just getting started with sponsorships, who doesn't want to have to take the lowest hanging fruit or do a bad deal, maybe needs to put together a package, or even somebody who's like, I want to be a content creator because I like to do that kind of work. I'd like to do it, but I just don't know how to monetize it. Do you have suggestions from your entrepreneurial journey as a creator?
Man, it's a great question. It's a really hard spot to be in whenever you're not like top 10, top 5 in a category, I think that's where people should always be striving to be. So I think while it doesn't answer your question directly, the first piece of advice is like niche down until you're top 5 in whatever niche that is. Even if it's only like 1,000 people watch those videos or something, if you can be like, I am the third best promoter of this kind of niche thing, there will be an audience of businesses that are trying to reach them. And if you can kind of get in touch and like bridge the gap there, you'll have more opportunities than being like the 30th best Web3 gaming video maker where you do let's plays, you know? I think when it comes to figuring out which bad sponsors you should avoid and which ones you might be sort of able to take, it comes down to like, in my opinion, the ethics side of it. Like, again, are they asking you to shill the token? Red flag.
Illegal.
Also illegal. Are they asking you to say that the game is only amazing, or are they okay with the fact that you have an opinion about it?
Are they trying to write your scripts? Are they trying to curate your content? Yeah.
And so you can get away with playing shitty games, pardon my French, if they're okay with you calling it shitty. You know, like I literally have a friend who made a content series where he would charge people to write threads on Twitter, and it was called FUD You Pay Me, which is fear, uncertainty, and doubt is like a term that we use in crypto Twitter. And so he would literally like write all the reasons that he didn't believe in the product, and they would pay him like $2,500 to write the thread. I think
that's brilliant,
dude. I love that.
Yeah, he didn't sell a ton of them, to be fair, but he did sell a few of them. He sold more than I expected, and so there are ways to like find authenticity even in taking bad sponsors. I've got a couple when I look back that I'm like kind of wish I didn't do that deal, but I think as long as you do it at a time and in a way where you're bringing them awareness, it's the customer's job to do some kind of due diligence, but it's also your job not to oversell it and make it sound like it's the greatest thing that ever happened and say that the token is going to the moon and stuff like that. Like, there's all kinds of bad brands that do all kinds of advertising all the time, and there's mutual responsibility there. And so I think as long as you don't cross any of those lines, you can dabble without completely torching your brand image. But one more time, in Web3 you have to be giga careful, because there are people that do some truly heinous shit for their audiences, and products that really do take advantage of people.
As long as we're talking about products, I kind of would like to get more into like some of the games and products that you're excited about. You're wearing the Avalanche shirt. I know you've been to like the Avalanche Summit. I know you've been to a lot of places where, the up and coming, the game that's in beta or the device. We're trying to get Alex like one of the 0x Play devices. So sweet. If you're out there, Sam, if you got the hookup dub, I don't know, what kind of stuff are you seeing? Are you playing? Are you excited for? And is the Play worth it? Is there a better handheld device? Can we get one?
I will contextualize that after you. I'm very curious to hear what you like. What has got your attention? What your eyes on right now?
So the Sweet Play is an interesting one on that note, which is like,
because they sold out the.
It did, yeah. So it has better hardware than the Switch 2, which is pretty sweet. But it's basically just like a Steam Deck. So the question is like, well, how does it differentiate? Yeah. And it's like crypto integration, obviously, but is there like a meaningful reason why it needs it? And a lot of the reason that it's sold out. We actually did this question yesterday on my show, Gamified. It was, would they be able to sell 100,000 of these instead of just 10,000 of these if they like removed the airdrop connotations? Because there's a lot of like, you will be rewarded with blah, blah, and you got an NFT for
especially
buying the
after
Play.
The Solana phone
the
stuff,
Solana phone stuff. Yes, people famously made thousands and thousands of dollars on crypto by buying the Solana phone, which airdropped them for owning the Solana phone, but nobody uses the Solana phone. They just talk about the drawer that their Solana phone is in now. And so it's this weird, like, yes, it's the handheld device is doing well, but only because of all these criteria behind it that
very
really
specific incentive structure.
Yeah. As far as games go, what I'm excited about, MapleStory, for people that don't know, I'm going to bring it up one more time because they're launching today. For people that don't know, I didn't realize how huge MapleStory was. Like,
I've never heard of it before.
It is a massive deal in Asia in particular. So it's been out for, I think, 25 years. MapleStory has 250 million registered users.
Whoa.
Yeah. A quarter billion people have played MapleStory. And then in that time, they've also done $5 billion in revenue, which is bigger than like Mortal Kombat. It's bigger than a lot of like the Capcom stuff. Like all these games that we like have played a lot in the West, it dwarfs them. And so MapleStory coming to Web3 is a really big deal because not only is it huge, it's like us getting a Call of Duty to come to Web3. It's also really important because they specifically are building in Web3 to solve a need that their game has had in Web2. Their players have literally been like, I wish I could do this with my item. I don't like the way that this system works, blah, blah, blah. And blockchain is the solution to that problem. And so it's experimental. Of course, not everybody's happy about it, but there's like a fundamental like reason for them to implement the blockchain into it. And so I'm really, really, really excited to see where that goes. We'll all kind of find out together, but I think it's one of the best sort of like shots on goal that we've had in a long time.
Other WolvesDAO member, our friend Alex in the chat, says, love Kart Rider by Nexon also, same company. So do you think that that's a, it sounds like it's weighty enough, almost like we were talking about the Pokemon thing. I know you talked about it on Gamified too. Yeah. It's the kind of intellectual property that is going to get people on board with this technology, maybe not, at the front of their brain, I'm on chain, but experiencing the benefits. And then maybe they'll come to demand them is what I'm hearing you say, yeah?
Yeah, I think what we need right now too is like business interest again. Yeah. We've lost a lot of like the VC fundraising. We've lost a lot of like the people wanting to take risks on business. And similar to everybody being like, I need to attribute this marketing to 10 conversions the same day. You get this really like high strung, like uptight, like just like unrealistic nature that surrounds things whenever you haven't had a win in a while. Yeah. And I think if somebody like MapleStory can swoop in and be like, I think their token is at $2.5 billion so far after launching this morning. So if they can maintain, volume and have like a high token price like that, if they can also show that you can do, tens of millions of transactions a day on a subnet and like nothing bad happens, if they can show that there's like a lot of revenue to be made on Web3 stuff that's obfuscated from the Web2 user, and combine all of it into this sexy package. Obviously, again, it's MapleStory with 250 million users. Like Joe Blow isn't going to be able to replicate that, but it does give us like a North Star to be like, oh, okay, here's how you integrate the system. Here's the kind of back-end technology you should use. Here's how you market the token. Here's the kind of IP you should be looking to acquire. You can buy IP and bring it into Web3 even. I know a guy that's working on, sorry, I can't say it, but somebody's working on bringing an IP into Web3 that they didn't own, but they were able to license, and they were open to using that license in Web3. There's a lot of ways to try and replicate things, even if it's on a smaller scale. So we just need the win, man. We just need a win.
Yeah, well, and I think too, like we've seen, I remember this, but this is speculation because this was never confirmed. I thought it was kind of obvious. Maybe 2 years ago now, ish, Supercell started messing with a new game called Moko. Like I think it's short for like Monster Company. I played the beta. It was really, really good. It was an epic game, and they had this tweet that they sent. No context, no prompt, no follow-up, no nothing. And I thought it was brilliant because it just said, Moko is adding NFTs. And then they immediately NFTs, and they had a picture underneath of this like little fairy thing, and it was like something fairy technology. And every single comment was like, "Oh, thank God! I got so scared for a second. Like this is awful." And these are all Web2 mobile gamers who play Clash of Clans and Clash Royale, and Brawl Stars, and I mean Haste or all the other stuff.
You name it.
Supercell undoubtedly is an absolute titan in mobile gaming, and I saw that tweet and I was immediately like, they're thinking about it, and this was the temperature test to see what the reception would be if they dropped some sort of Web3 integration. And it went really poorly, and they didn't taint their image at all with the exploratory like sampling of the community to see like what people would think if they announced something. Because I've always thrown that out there, like gems would be, if you tokenize gems, you could probably do some stuff with a game that is that big. I think like the MapleStory thing is exciting because if they are able to have learned from all of this observation throughout the last how many years of watching people fail and fuck this up because of XYZ, whatever, and they're able to do a meaningful integration, like you say, I think it opens the door for other big brands to be like, okay, we don't just have to launch token and pray or mint a 10,000 PFP collection, which were like basically your only options 3 or 4 years ago to do something. So yeah, I'm excited about that one too, just because I hope that it helps kind of set a better precedent for, you know, someone with that many users like doing something meaningful just to enrich the player's life somehow. You know?
Yeah. I mean, the end game here too is that like everybody wins. It just takes a while to get there. Like, think about how crappy it was whenever you first had to download a game instead of getting like the disc.
Yeah.
It was like it took 9 hours. You needed to like patch for another 6. It was a miserable experience. Nobody wanted to do it. But now it's so seamless and like all of your stuff is intertwined and like you log in one time and you have 400 Steam games and they're all installed and like you have fiber internet and like all these things have gone into it that made it incredibly easy. But it took like 20 years of the internet to get there. You know, it took a really, really long time. And eventually we will get there where like the user gets all kinds of benefits because they own their assets and they could do things they couldn't have done in Web 2. And then also the Web 3 company gets to like monetize in interesting ways that are unique to them while also getting better data on the consumer without being able to identify them. Like a lot of the problems with the data that we get from our mobile device is like it says like this is Sam. But whenever instead it's like, this is a wallet and we know all these things about how this wallet behaves, you've removed all the like illegal parts of knowing somebody's identity and what they do. So you can actually track way more interesting data and target them with way more interesting things. So it's like there's all these reasons why businesses should be like tripping over themselves to actually enter Web3. But to your point, it's like if you get that kind of response, that's a pretty big red flag to do something, especially when you're Supercell and you're worth $45 billion. It's like, why would I take that risk? You know?
Exactly.
Me and Peyton, the founder of the WolvesDAO, sat down with Ken Wee, who's the chief strategy officer at Blizzard. And he was like, he was in Web3 and this was 2022. We went to GDC, the Game Developers Conference in San Francisco. And we were like, Ken, like, what are you interested in Web3? Because he was like, he joined the WolvesDAO. We were like hanging out with him. He's a good dude. And he was like, honestly, you know, I'm just kind of like getting a temperature check. And I was like, oh, what do you mean? He was like, you know, we're not going to do anything for a while. And I was like, man, really? He was like, yeah, you know how we like bought King Mobile, which is the creator of Candy Crush. He was like, yeah, we bought King like 4 years after like mobile gaming really became a thing, and we paid $5 billion for it, but now it's worth like 30. So we're just going to do that with Web3. Like
totally.
we'll just wait for somebody to win and then we'll just buy them, and that's our Web3 presence. And I was like, I mean, kind of sucks to hear, but like it makes total sense. Like I can't blame you guys for feeling that way at all, you know?
Yeah.
Do you know who William Quigley is?
I don't.
He's the co-founder of
great
Tether.
name, though.
And it's a fantastic name.
He's a hell of a
Points
dude.
for William Quigley. And he's the co-founder of Wax, which I have a lot of, you know, I don't know it well. And I'm sure if he was here, he'd be like, Evan, that's bullshit. When I say something like, they seem oriented towards like, let's optimize for transactions and take a lot of fees, as opposed to let's get the most fun games of all time. You know,
Right.
Don't hate me, William. I love you, man.
OG like gaming involved, like he, you know,
His
in the days of
partner-
Ultima Online and old school MMOs and all that kind of stuff.
Invented the concept of trading video game items for fiat.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So he knows that which he speaks of. But he had this, you know, elucidation on our show where he says incumbents can never be the ones that will bring NFTs, bring Web3 gaming to the masses because they stand to lose so much. Their business
They're not
models,
going to be the innovators.
they depend on the status quo and on maintaining the status quo. So if Blizzard gives you an NFT, it'll be an NFT with terms and conditions. It'll be because the audience says they want NFTs, but Blizzard can't give away all the business. They need to own as much of it as possible until some upstart company is challenging them so much by giving people this benefit, and it's no longer too risky, and then they'll buy it.
I always think about it as like you have to get to 51%. And I'm going to use an example that's not incredibly tasteful, but it was the clearest that I've ever seen this because it was such an important time in like American history.
Yeah.
Whenever it was like 2016 or 17, where all of a sudden you would turn on the TV and you would just see like every company with pride flags for gay pride in America. It was like Budweiser and like all these companies all of a sudden just embracing it, and I was like, oh, we've hit 51%, where more of the population is like, oh, cool, instead of being like, oh, boo, and now it's acceptable and even like a good thing for them to kind of co-market with this movement that's going on. And I've never been alive for something that was like so contentious, and then it was like everybody's into it, you know?
Yep.
And I do feel like we're working our way through that. I mean, that took like 50 years in American history. Hopefully Web3 gaming moves a little bit faster than that. But like it was very obvious of like, oh, that's just how corporations kind of function, is like they will wait until like the majority agrees, and then once the majority agrees, they just take that stance to be like,
it's safe to put our thumbs in the air.
Exactly.
Okay, so reminder to our audience, whether you're listening live or in the future, hello, we hope your candles are green. This is a great time for you to pause, leave a comment, write a question, a suggestion, a good joke, a word of wisdom, because we have got to round the show out. It's almost time for final thoughts and to ride our dogs and ponies off into the sunset. So in a minute, Sam, we're going to ask you to give a final thought, maybe a preview of what you're excited about here at Consensus, or anything else that you want to share before we get the heck out of here and go do some business. But first, my friends, I got to tell you that if you enjoyed today's episode, you are going to love all the recordings that we have waiting for you at the riseupmorningshow.com on your favorite social platform. And while you are there, do not forget to check out the other resources. If you're curious about crypto, you're trying to navigate this new world, AI, blockchain, Web3, what the heck is it? Is it a scam? Does it matter? Don't fret, don't sweat. We're here Monday through Thursday at 7 a.m. Central Standard Time to interview expert guests, share helpful news, commentary, slow things down, and take your questions. You got some beginner questions you're scared to ask anywhere else? Come to Web3 101 Wednesdays. If you don't get a question answered on our show, then you should be in the Rise Up Discord server. It's a global community. It's totally free. The only thing missing is you, and you can find all the links at the riseupmorningshow.com. And I will say one more time, shout out to our friends at Polygon who are currently powering the Rise Up Morning Show, keeping the lights on, and we just appreciate them so much. So much. So Polygon, thank you.
I am a
thank
big fan
you
of
for
this.
being the very best part of what we do. And gentlemen, I think it's that time. We'll give our final thoughts. Alex, do you want to go first?
I do, and in true fashion, I'm going to rug your final thought and ask one more question.
Hell yeah, I love it. I love it. Alex always, usually on our mobile studio, he's got his phone there. We've both got eyes on the chat, and we're, picking a lot more questions up. Having guests in person this week it's too good an opportunity not to really do deep focus on each other.
You have to, yeah. You can't split focus.
But usually Alex is like, well, for my final thought, I'm going to answer these 6 questions from the chat. He's an educator. I can't fault him for it.
It's great quality.
No, but I do have a question that we haven't gotten to ask yet, which is your calling card, inevitability. And
yes.
I would love if you could tell us what informed the decision to start Web3 Gaming is Inevitable, which has started to grow into all sorts of things are inevitable. USDC to $2 is inevitable.
Is inevitable.
And I just want to know how it came to be that you determined the inevitability of Web3 gaming.
Yeah, it was, I had like my final thesis for why I thought it was definitely going to happen, which is why I dedicated my life and career to it. To be honest, whenever I said it for the first time on Twitter, I was thinking, do you know Easy Eats Bodega?
Of course.
Yeah, totally.
Easy's a good dude. He was tweeting one day at a time every day. And I thought like, that's pretty cool because everybody sort of tweets like GM and is just low effort about it, which one day at a time is also very low effort once it's established. But like to think of it and then have this sort of calling card that's
at least unique,
yeah, is different. So I was like, well, what would my one day at a time be that I would want to like get people to rally around? I was like, I'll try out. Well, maybe I'll just come up with like 10 different things and I'll see if any of them stick or whatever. And I was on one of those people movers in the Salt Lake City airport. I was just like, I messed around on my phone. And I was like, what do I think like people in Web3 gaming would like relate to? And it was the first thing I ever wrote about. I was just like, I just believe it's inevitable. It's like short, it's kind of snappy, and like, I don't know, we'll see. And yeah, the response was pretty instantaneous. People were like, oh yeah, fuck yeah, hell yeah, it is.
It's inevitable, yeah.
And then it only took like a month or two before Immutable came out with their $100 million inevitable fund, which I thought was pretty on the nose. And
Waiting for the check still.
yeah, they did. It's
in the mail.
DM me about that, by the way. So yeah, I don't know, man. It was like something that took a while to get to, but then it happened just sort of instantly. Just sort of, yeah.
Do you know how many times you've tweeted it so far?
I had it on the screen share in the search, and there were at least dozens. But there
Yeah.
are probably
No,
there
are hundreds.
There's, I would say, probably about 100.
Okay.
I don't tweet it on Sundays. It just feels
Out of respect.
out of respect for all the religions. Yeah, I don't know. There's a few different times where I'm just like, like I still believe it, but I don't feel like it needs to be out in the world today. Like, I'm gonna just let people like have a day where they don't have it shoved down their throat, But I've tweeted it a lot, and I do think, it's a very interesting bet on sort of like if you. There are people that can call me like I don't know, a shill or like a hopeless optimist or whatever, but you can't say I don't put my money where my mouth is, because I have basically bet my entire social career on this being successful. If in 2 years like Web3 gaming collapses, I'm the dumbass that said it every day for multiple years and like it was a giant failure in front of everybody. But if it succeeds, you've got to give me the flowers of like, I was the guy that in the depths of the bear market when no one was interested was still like, guys, trust me, it's inevitable. So we'll either laugh or cry about that in a couple of years,
Yeah, but
we'll laugh together or cry alone.
Yeah.
everybody
We'll never call you again.
everybody onto something big is delusional until they're right. And then they were a genius.
Yeah,
so
dude. You're early, you're wrong, and then it happens, and
everyone knew it. And,
Overnight
I
success.
saw, yeah, we knew
That's
it.
right, yeah.
a quick couple of highlights from the comments to shout out. Everyone wants to know, where's Nil? Where's Will? Our friend Will Watson is in transit. He's going to be here later today. You're going to see him, and he will be back to his regular content schedule next week. We also have comments saying, great show. Folks love you, Sam. Our friend Alex said, my closing thought, Sam has a great radio voice and should do more spots, which seems like a good point to tell you that if you can't get enough of Sam Steffanina,
Fortunately for you.
you need to check him out first and foremost on Gamified. That is his show. You can find it at Gamified, spelled like it sounds, show on X, the website formerly known as Twitter. Or if you're a podcast listener and you'd rather listen on demand, then go to your favorite podcasting app. I have it pulled up right here on the screen share on Spotify. Looks like you got a bunch of episodes there. You're on number 117 now. I was there for 100. Huge milestone. Congratulations.
Thanks, man.
And also, you can find all the other stuff that Sam is working on X via his profile, Sam Steffanina. 2 Fs, 1 N. Well, 2 N's, but just not back to back.
Yeah.
And then you can find WolvesDAO. You can find the Farcade. You can find all that good stuff. And I do want you to know, because somebody mentioned it, and it's so important, that wherever you are listening to us on these platforms, these are our only profiles. They're the official channels, the official links. If somebody reaches out to you, they got Sam's face, but they've got Alex's username, and they're asking you how trading is going or offering you a Bitcoin investment, that's not us. We are never, ever, ever, ever going to DM you first, ask you to join our Telegram group, or try and invest money for you. It is scammers. No legitimate creator ever will. So
You can avoid 95% of scams in crypto by never answering a DM.
never answering a DM. And it's not because we don't want to hear from you or talk to you. It's because we have official channels for that in order to keep you and us safe. So check out Sam Steffanina on X. Find all Sam's links. Check out theriseupmorningshow.com. Find all of our links. And then just vibe with us, because either we're early and we'll be right one day, or we'll be wrong and we'll laugh together about it. It'll be great. Sam, I had one last quick question for you, and then I want to know if there's anything you didn't get to share that you want to. You mentioned Easy Eats Bodega, and I don't know if it was Gamified or maybe it was another space. He was talking about vibe coding a game, maybe with Cursor, that he was giving the working title Pump and Dump Tycoon. And it was essentially like a meme coin launching platform, but with fake Monopoly money. And your
Right.
goal was to play through a couple of preset variables to try and launch a meme coin and get it to like $1 million market cap and do it again and again and again before your dev rugged you, or, you know, the community turned on you, or, you know, you made a bad choice or whatever. And I was like, this is a brilliant game. And it was the first example I had heard of like a vibe coded game that was not on, you know, Farcade, that somebody just had built. And I got to know, because you teased, you've built a game on the Farcade and you would like to build more. What game are you going to build next? And what games would you like to build?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that one of the cool things is like, basically you could make anything that you ever want. So my brain is just going through like all the things that I've ever loved, which the most recent one that I made was a fishing game, because I think that there's like something beautiful about like the sort of like peacefulness of like you're sitting on top of the boat, but then also like the adrenaline dopamine rush of like, you know, the fish is coming at you, whatever. I also really want to make Buck Hunter. You guys,
Dude, yeah, I remember. I had a bass fishing game and Buck Hunter.
Yeah,
it's
dude.
same kind of thing, kind of peaceful. You're walking, you're like, oh shit.
On the
there he is.
episode with Chuck, one of the suggestions that rolled through was Buck Hunter.
Hell yeah, dude. Yeah. Very 2D too. Just like on the, you just have to figure out a way to make it so like you don't just like tap it, because you used to have to aim at the screen,
right?
You know, so you have to come up with some novel mechanic there, which I think is really fun. But yeah, I mean, it's so cool to see like Easy's approach, which is like, well, let's take shitcoin trading and like put it into a game that people can play and get the same dopamine hit over like fear of like, oh, I'm gonna get rugged.
Right.
It's brilliant, man. I think that there's this unlock that's gonna happen where creativity takes over and genres just like don't exist. You guys know like in music how you have like Beck and like Kendrick Lamar and stuff that are just like, you could say Kendrick Lamar is hip hop or rap, but it's really like jazz and funk mixed with hip hop or rap.
Yeah.
And we're fast approaching that with like Wildcard, which I know you guys know from the Betners, which is like a TCG mixed with a MOBA, which is in an arena battler. And it's like, okay, well, that's 3 genres. So I think more and more we're going to see things wash away and actually just be their own very unique experience. And I hope too with the Farcade people are able to create a lot of those kinds of things, because they're like creative 14-year-olds that just like have this wild idea and they are able to actually bring it to fruition, instead of being a company like we talked about, an incumbent that needs to prove with market data that there are people that want to combine a TCG with a MOBA, and there's at least 700 million of them, or else it's not worth the TAM isn't big enough, so we're not going to spend the money to test it. You know, it's just all these things that
And, you know, on that like idea, that we're also seeing a lot of just, I mean, not just is the genre changing, but the form, the container. Farcade is a great example. Like now you can scroll, you can make games the way you create content. Crypto the game, I heard you guys talking about that. It's kind of a temporal format. You don't have to play every day to preserve your spot. You play seasonally. You play every once in a while. It's
Which powerful, because when it's happening,
you're dedicated.
It controls the attention economy as it's running. Yeah.
I'm excited to see what people will build, and I'm excited to see Alex start doing more game dev stuff, because I know there are about 1 million games in his head, and at least 3 of them will be fire. But
yeah,
probably
shout
a
out
lot
to
more.
one of my many failed businesses, the video game studio Glass for Breakfast, which is still my favorite name that I've ever given anything.
Yeah, it's a great name.
Came up with it
It's a true
sitting
name.
on the parking lot, like on the ground outside of a car dealership, talking to Mac on the phone about how we were failing and how. And then he just made the comment. So shout out to Mac for the naming rights to that one. He's like, yeah, we're just like sitting here eating our glass. And I was like, yeah, dude, for breakfast every day. And that was it. But you know, it was a game. And so I'm very excited to like try to start messing with that in Farcade. That's my plan. 100%.
I think so. I can't wait. Sam, thank you for being generous with your time. Thank you for hanging out with us. And we can't wait to get you back again. And then, you know, we'll see you around the internet for sure, brother.
Thanks so much for having me. Thanks, guys, for listening. You guys mentioned the podcast. If you don't like my takes, don't worry. They're panels where I talk to other people.
It's mostly other people.
Sam is really generous and gracious with his time. He's built this incredible platform and mostly just gives it away. All right. And next we'll hear from, you know, he does a great introduction and then just passes the mic around. And I don't know what he's probably playing a game on his phone. And next we'll hear from
a genuine shout out, though. The panels that you curate and the different voices from different pieces of the industry to give spicy or controversial or very pointed takes is really, 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 really good. You will get a great idea of what I would call the thought leaders of that niche actually think about something. And actually, I think it's worth mentioning just because we talked about this yesterday. One of the reasons that I personally also do believe that Web3 gaming is inevitable, but going through a rough patch, is because gamers have a very low tolerance for bad product. And they are one of the most unshy communities or consumers of any product ever when it comes to giving you hard-hitting, immediate bad feedback, which also means that the things that make it in Web3 gaming are going to be really fucking good.
Yeah.
Because there is just no tolerance for bullshit.
And speaking of things that are inevitable, Sam Steffanina was inevitable. Sam Steffanina on Rums was inevitable, and I'm glad we got to make it happen. So one last time, my brother, thank you, and thank you for being the very best part of what we do. My friends, you can catch our episodes on demand. You can find all the links below in the description if you're listening to the recording. You can find Sam's links. You can find so much more. And check out everything at theriseuppmorningshow.com. Until we're back on Monday. Whew. Long weekend.
Hell of a week.
Yeah. Until we're back on Monday, my friends. Everybody, stay safe. Be well. Until next time, my friends.
Tell the gal.